Italian-style stuffed peppers. These are delicious, so let's get started. Now, I will be showing 2 images of what ingredients I'm going to be using for today's dish. So seeing I'm making these just for me, I'm just using 2 bell peppers, and I like the bell peppers that are colored. They seem to have more flavor than the green. But again, this is totally up to what you like. And then next to that on the left, I got some brown rice. And I'm going to guess that that's probably about a half a cup. And then behind that, I got some garlic powder. I got some tomato sauce in the jar. Again, the tomato sauce is just an accent in today's dish. It's not the main focus. So jar sauce works wonderful. Then next to the sauce, we have some Parmesan cheese. And then I have some sharp provolone cheese. This is the real McCoy. And then next to that, we have some pepper, we have some salt, and then we have some parsley flakes. And in front of the parsley flakes, we have an egg, and we have some Italian seasoning. Okay, now for our next list, we got some ground Italian sausage in the front, next to some ground beef, and this is Chuck. Nice to meet you, Chuck. And then behind that, we got some black pepper, some salt, some red wine, some diced onion, and some minced garlic. Now, I do want to mention when I went over the cheese in the first slide about the provolone and all that, you can use like a cheddar cheese if you want, or any kind of cheese that you really enjoy, because that's going to be more of the topping of the stuffed pepper. And then if I did forget some ingredients throughout the video, we'll definitely cover that through the course of today's video. So now the fun part, let's get cooking. So the first thing I'm going to start doing here now is we're going to start cooking off the meats. So I'm going to put some olive oil in a skillet, and I got this on about medium to about medium-high heat. And then next in goes the chopped onion or the diced onion. And then we're going to salt the onion because that's going to help it sweat where it releases all the flavors. I think I say this like in every video, huh? And then next we're going to add some black pepper to this. We want to season each stage of the cooking process. And then next we want to give it a stir. And I did forget to mention that I also have the minced garlic mixed in with the diced onion. So stirring this all around is going to make sure that the garlic, the onion, the salt, and the pepper all gets well blended. So now next, I'm going to get the onion, the garlic, and I'm going to push it off to one side of the skillet so that we make room now to add the meat. Doing this will ensure that the meat gets full contact with the bottom of the pan. Now I'm going to turn up the heat just a tad because I was cooking mine about medium. So now I'm going to cook it up to about medium-high. Or I should say turn it up to medium-high. The reason for this is because the meat takes more heat than the onions does. And plus, once I add the red wine to this, we want it to reduce and simmer off that excess alcohol. So in goes some sausage first. And I'm not using a lot of this, because again, I'm only stuffing 2 peppers. So the amount that I showed at the start of the video is not the full amount that I'm using. And then in goes some of the ground beef. And I'm using equal parts. Now, if you've seen any of my past videos, I use this large salad serving fork a lot when it comes to ground beefs, sausage. It's a great way of breaking it up while you're sauteing the meats. So now I'm just blending the sausage, the hamburger, or I should say the ground beef. Give it a nice stir. And we're going to cook this pretty much, but it doesn't have to be well done because again, it's going to go in the oven and we're going to cook it in the oven for a while. So it's definitely going to finish cooking then, but you do want to cook it to about medium well. And now it's time to start seasoning up the meats. So now I'm going to add some salt, fresh ground black pepper. And then once we add the pepper, we're going to give it another stir. Make sure everything's well blended. And now I am going to blend everything together, the onion, the garlic, and the meats. Then next, I'm going to hit it with some Italian seasoning. And I just give it a dusting of this because we're also going to be adding it a little bit later in today's dish. Okay, now I just want to cover something before I move on, is that when I make a lot of different dishes, sometimes I make them all different ways. I improvise and what feels good at that given moment. So when it comes to using the tomato sauce in today's dish, I actually forgot about it until I was almost done with the bacon process, which we will see later on exactly what I did to get around this. But now, when I make my stuffed peppers using meat and all this, a lot of times I'll use the sauce during this stage. Or sometimes once I put it in a bowl with all the other ingredients, I'll add the sauce then. So this is going to be totally up to you when you want to add the sauce, if you even want to add any at all. If you do want to add the sauce during this stage, I advise adding it before adding the red wine. So as you could see, I did just use the red wine. So now we're going to cook this off for a couple of minutes to make sure that some of that alcohol evaporates. So again, during this stage, you want to have the heat up to about at least a medium high. So now this is done cooking, and I do leave the liquid in with the meat also, because we may need some liquid later on when we start making the stuffing. Also, what I did was that I refrigerated this overnight, but you don't have to do that if you want to make it that same day. But I do advise letting it at least cool down. So with the two peppers that I'm using right here, I just gave them a fast rinse. Now, I prefer using a serrated edge for cutting up peppers, and also sometimes onion. It seems to grasp it better. So first I'm going to start by cutting off the tops and discarding that and the inside of the peppers. The membranes, the seeds, all that, because we want to make as much room as possible for the stuffing. Now, I did decide to throw away the tops of the peppers because I'm not going to use them, but some people will use those pieces, dice them up, and add them to the stuffing. And again, what I'm doing here is that I'm just cleaning out the center or the inside of the pepper. Now, when I make my stuffed peppers, I cut my peppers in half. They're a lot easier to actually eat this way, I find. And sometimes you're not in the mood for a whole pepper. And this way you could also use it if you want as a side dish. Okay, now comes the fun part, putting together the stuffing. And first I'm going to add the meat. Now the reason why I like to chill the meat is because when I start adding like cheeses to this and other ingredients to the stuffing, I don't want the heat from the meat to kind of make a mess out of everything. You know, stop breaking down the cheeses and all that. It's probably not a huge difference because it's going to go in the oven anyways, but it just seems a lot easier to work with everything if the meat's on the cool side. Now next goes in about, it's a little less than a cup of rice. And then next I'm going to add some garlic powder. And then next I'm going to add some Italian seasoning. Again, we're seasoning every stage of the cooking process. And then next I'm going to add some parsley flakes. This is mainly just to give it some nice color. Now I'm going to add some salt, but I don't use a lot of salt in this because we're going to be adding Parmesan cheese, which is also salty. And then with salt, we always add some black pepper. And now in goes some Parmesan grated cheese. And this cheese is really good. The market themselves actually grates it. And I'm going to add a good amount and add some nice flavor to this. Now you could also use like shredded cheddar, Monterey Jack, whatever kind of cheese you really like. So now here's something that I started doing a couple of years ago and it made a huge difference. When we used to make stuffed peppers and we went to eat them, the stuffing would just fall apart. It would just come out of the pepper. But using an egg and blending this in is going to act as a binder and it keeps everything attached. And to save on cleanup, I'm using the same cup that I had the rice in. By the way, the rice that I use for today's dish is microwaved brown rice that comes in these little cups. They're perfect for something like this. I decided I wanted to sprinkle some Italian-style breadcrumbs in this. We want the stuffing to be like the consistency of like making meatballs. So you don't want it too wet and you don't want it too dry. So the breadcrumbs and the Parmesan cheese helps when it comes to if you need to stiffen it up a bit more. And now in goes the egg, and there's no tools better than your hands, so just get in there with your hands just like making meatballs. Okay, mine's still a little too wet, so I'm just gonna add a little more breadcrumbs. Again, with my hands, I'm gonna stir it around a bit, and that seems about perfect right there. And again, you have the choice of adding your tomato sauce during that stage if you want to. That's totally up to you, but that's pretty much it for making the stuffing. Okay, now we're getting close. Now we need to put the stuffing inside the peppers, and I'm gonna line them up first inside this baking pan. So I'm just gonna arrange them. Sometimes I do use a wire rack when I do this, but today I didn't bother using the wire rack. Now, here's something I always do now when I make stuffed peppers. It seems like a lot of times when I ate stuffed peppers, it was missing something. The peppers, a lot of times when people make these, they don't season the pepper at all. And peppers, like most vegetables, salt really is a marriage. So I make sure that I salt my peppers and even use some black pepper before I add the stuffing. This here way, everything in this dish is being seasoned and very tasty. And then I even used some garlic powder. Alright, so next now it's time to put the stuffing inside of the peppers. And you'll want to pack this pretty tight, as we see right here. And then I put enough in where it's got like a nice mound on top. Now a lot of times it might be easier to stuff the pepper if you hold it in one of your hands and then just do it that way. Which I decided on doing now to each pepper to make sure that that stuffing is really packed in there. And you want to make sure that you push the stuffing in far enough to reach all the sides of the pepper. And then next one I'm doing is I got some real sharp provolone cheese. This is the real McCoy. This stuff is strong. So I got my cheese grater and I'm just going to grate off some of this cheese on the top of each one of the peppers. And so what I'm going to do with my cheese grater is to grate this over each pepper. Now again, Monterey Jack works great here. Any shredded cheese, even sliced provolone cheese. So next now we want to start preheating the oven. And I cooked mine at 375 Fahrenheit for about 30 minutes covered. And then I uncovered it. And then I cooked it for an additional 10 to 15 minutes. But we'll be seeing these steps as we progress through the video. And then I'm also adding a little bit of water to the bottom of the pan. This helps it steam while it's covered, and it makes the pepper cook better. And it also helps as far as not burning the bottom of the pepper. I decided to add a little more cheese to this. Now all that's left to do now is to cover this with some aluminum foil. And again, the cooking time is about 30 minutes covered on 375 degrees. Then we're going to take it out, test them, and then if they're cooked enough, we're going to uncover them and cook them off for about another 10 to 15 minutes. Okay, so after the 30 minutes, I pulled them out of the oven, and now we're going to test them. And the best thing to use to test these is like a small pointy knife. And we just want to see on how tender the peppers are. And those are absolutely perfect. Now I'm going to top mine with the tomato sauce, but I do really advise putting it in the mix earlier, like I said. It just adds a lot more flavor in the stuffing. But these peppers came out really good. And now I'm just going to sprinkle some grated Parmesan cheese on top of the tomato sauce. And then we're going to top it off with some parsley flakes. And then this is going to go back in the oven for about another 10 to 15 minutes, uncovered. And there we have it, folks, the final product. Make these for your family. They're really going to enjoy it. So there's my version of Italian-styled stuffed peppers. And I thank everyone for stopping by and checking out the OceanState Cuisine. So remember to like, subscribe for more awesome videos coming your way, and then ring that bell notification down below. It all helps support the channel. And you all have yourself a fantastic day. Take care. Bye-bye.